Please welcome to the stage Julie Frederickson of Stowaway Cosmetics, Jennifer Hyman, Runway, David Tisch from Spring, and our moderator, Colleen Taylor. Yeah. Have fun, guys.
All right, we only have 20 minutes, and each of you are fantastic, and I just want to dive into our conversation. So for the benefit of time, I'm going to do a quick rundown of each of your companies and what they do. David Tisch, we'll start with you. David Tisch is the co-founder of Spring, which is a mobile marketplace for brands to sell directly to consumers on their phones. And David is also an investor, well known here in New York, probably to a lot of you. In the middle here, we're happy to have Jennifer Hyman, who's the co-founder and CEO of Rent the Runway, which I'm sure a lot of you know about. It's the online destination for designer apparel and accessory rentals. And they also have a subscription business and an a la carte business, which we're going to talk about. And to my right is Julie Frederickson, who's the founder of Stowaway, a direct-to-consumer e-commerce startup that makes makeup that you love in small sizes that you can carry and actually finish, which is a novel concept. So Jen, I want to start with you because you've been doing this a long time, very successfully. And what's interesting to me in the past couple of years is that Rent the Runway was so established as an e-commerce company, an online thing. And you guys have launched some brick and mortar locations, some showrooms. What made you decide to do that?
So let me tell you about TechCrunch.
I think that building a brand is always multifaceted, and you need to think about all of the channels through which you're going to acquire customers. We've found that our physical retail stores accomplish two things. Number one is they're the most effective way for us to spend effectively marketing dollars because they have the strongest brand impact on the customer. It's much stronger to have a physical retail store than to buy paid ads on Google, as an example, especially when you're trying to serve up to the customer a new customer behavior like renting clothes. The second thing is, by nature of having a physical retail store in a market like Chicago or DC, which are two of our markets where we have retail stores, I'm able to use that store like a mini distribution center and provide a better level of customer service and experience to all of the women who live in that market. Because I'm in the business of renting clothes, there's a percentage of the time where you will receive something as a customer and you will not like it, it will not fit. That is kind of a cardinal rule of e-commerce. Now that I have a store in the Gold Coast of Chicago, if you live anywhere in that area and let's say you receive an order and it doesn't fit, we can courier you more options from the store. So what would have been a return now comes back and is counted as cash. So using the store as an operational hub is incredibly important to solve problems. It also allows us to have a last-minute business in those cities. So around 30% of fast fashion, so H&M, Zara, et cetera, of their revenue comes from people having a last-minute need and going into the store and booking it. And now we can really compete with fast fashion as well.
Is that something that you always knew you wanted to do from the very beginning? Did you guys have this dream of having a brick and mortar store, or was that something that came up later?
Having stores was something that did come up later. We've seen the incredible success of some of our friends' companies, whether it's Warby Parker or Bonobos, Trunk Club having physical outposts, and seeing how it ignites the brand. And we still are in the e-commerce business. People love to see and feel the inventory, try things on. It addresses a new customer segment. Now, the difference between us and a traditional retailer is we see a strategy of potentially long-term having 15 to 20 stores in major metros. We don't ever see a strategy of having hundreds of stores, which is what a traditional retailer or brand would do.
Is there anything, do either of the two of you think that a retail store or brick and mortar shop is in your future? David, we'll start with you.
Look, I think what Jen said that's super important about offline is A, extending the brand, and B, service. Is you need to provide your customers with fantastic service. And if that means the ability to exchange something because it doesn't fit the day of your event, if you're renting a dress, that's a vital piece of their pie. For spring, we're working with other brands. And so our brand partners, they have their own stores. We're not looking to compete in the channels that they exist. What we're trying to do is to help the brands figure out a direct-to-consumer. So what is their store on a mobile phone? So if you're a passionate brand evangelist for a brand, you may download their app. But if you're sort of a casual shopper, or if you love a brand but not enough to be obsessed and download their app and put it on your home screen, how are they going to reach you on mobile? That's where we're trying to fit it. And so for brands to figure out a communication and a sales channel where they're able to control the entire experience, that's what Spring is to these brands. Is that going to extend offline? I don't think in the near term. I think, as Jen alluded to, there's marketing opportunities to take your brand and put it into places where consumers can find it more accessibly.
Just to add to that, since 2009, when we launched the company, one of the major things that's changed in shopping is that a huge portion of discovery of new products is now happening on Instagram and Pinterest for women. So though Pinterest and Instagram basically serve as virtual malls or virtual kind of cataloging for every woman across the globe right now. So the business at Spring is very smart in how they're using Instagram as a channel.
Thanks, Jen.
So I think what's really important to remember is that direct-to-consumer means that you're interacting directly with the consumer, right? Like, it seems really stupid and obvious, but specialty retail is direct-to-consumer. When you go to a mall and you go to an Ann Taylor, that's direct-to-consumer. So anyone who is building a direct-to-consumer brand, which Stowaway is, we manufacture and retail our own line of makeup, means that any channel through which I can directly have a conversation with you, we will explore. Stowaway is very new. We've been alive for, I think, 10 or 11 weeks. So whether or not we do a store is far in the future. But all I care about is reaching consumers in the mediums that make sense for them, and physical mediums do make sense.
But D2C also means something else for these brands, and you definitely understand this, is there's a margin involved, right? When you're a wholesale brand and you're giving up half your margin to that retail partner versus a brand like H&M, Zara, Warby Parker, Everlane, Stowaway, they're selling direct to consumer, which brings down prices. And so that's happened offline. Brands open their own stores. It's happened online. Brands build their own websites. On mobile, that channel is really hard to develop, again, because raise your hand in the audience if you have an individual brand app sitting on your homepage. Look, we have a lot of people here. Nobody raised their hand.
Even with all those incentives that they have, it's like, please download our app and you'll get this.
Yeah, download Spring. But
definitely
but seriously, there's nobody who's waking up and downloading that brand app to go shopping. They might download the brand app because they love the content. They love the community. They're not going to download each brand's app to shop from that brand. And I think that that's the struggle with mobile that has been solved offline and on the web.
Yeah, the future of retail is the end of wholesale. And I think that's why Spring and Rent the Runway are so exciting for me as a consumer, because it's just the wholesale process, it's bad for brands, and it's really hard for retailers. There just aren't the margins. I'm thrilled to be able to go to Rent the Runway and be like, this is what I want in my Unlimited. I'm wearing something now, and just knowing that like those experiences are going to be the future, because it just makes more money for everyone. Like, that's kind of why we're all here. Capitalism.
Everybody benefits.
Yeah, everyone
both
wins.
the brand and the consumer benefits by technology is supposed to remove middlemen, right? And if you think about that, that's where building the direct connection makes sense.
I'd imagine, though, it still would be hard to turn down if Sephora were to come to you tomorrow and say, we would like to have Stowaway in all of our stores worldwide. Would you really say no? Because
I have. I turned down a $10 million PO.
Wow.
And not from Sephora, but from another retailer. Because the reason my product doesn't exist, how many women are in the audience? I have a little struggle seeing. So there's not a ton, but of you, how many have finished a lipstick ever? Yeah, that's what I thought. So the makeup industry is highly entrenched in a position in which everyone is a wholesaler. And when you're a wholesaler, you really care about your margins, which means they're manufacturing enormous products that none of you are finishing. And so one of the reasons no one manufactures the smaller sizes is there's a cost of goods issue, and that it costs the same to make a smaller size as a larger size, which is why they're selling you, well, bullshit Costco sizes you can't finish. So we're not ever planning to have that from a distribution perspective, because it's not the customer experience. There are plenty of ways to scale, and we've seen it with all of our brother companies. in a direct way that don't involve cutting out all of those margins, because then we don't make any profit off of those products.
And there's two pieces to this, right? One is the price to consumers and to the brands. The other is the service and the experience that the brand delivers. And so when you're looking at a retail experience, the retailer takes ownership of that experience. When you're working with a marketplace like Spring, we allow the brand to send the package. It's in their box. It's their unpackaging experience. The customer can take a videotape and bring it online like they do in all these brands. And so I think that that's the piece too that's important, is to give the brand the ability to sell their products in the way that they want to sell them, which tells their story.
I think that when Amazon, started and has become as huge and successful as it has, there's been kind of a point of view in the tech world in particular that e-commerce is just better. Why would you ever use a physical store now that you have e-commerce or you have mobile commerce? And from the customer's point of view, yes, it's much easier to order your commodities and your essentials on Amazon, but there are still reasons why you would go into a physical location, whether that's discovery of something new, whether it's experiential, whether it's just fun. Now, it happens to be that startups, because we're a technology-first company, we started, most of the people that work at Rent the Runway work in engineering or in logistics. I can recreate what a retail store is to service the customer need a lot quicker than a traditional department store ever would be able to. So I can understand that customers want to come into my store for customer service, personalized styling, and a unique experience. So one of the things that you'll see from our retail stores in the future is a huge part of our business is subscription, where people have essentially a Netflix for fashion. You can receive 3 things at a time off of your queue, etc. Well, imagine a world where you can come into our retail store and take the necklace that Julie is wearing and her bag and say, I'm tired of this. Here it is. I want to kind of steal 2 things from the store and walk out of the store without paying. We're going to beacon you and just grab whatever you want. So the store is effectively an extension of this dream closet that we're creating. Now, I can do that because I can build out that functionality and disrupt the industry way before an established player can do that.
I want to talk about that because you've seen this firsthand. Rent the Runway has been a pioneer in a lot of ways since 2009, doing this concept, sort of pioneering this concept. I feel like what we've seen in recent years is these incumbents starting to really hustle to try and at least appear more savvy, because of this threat of disruption. So what has that experience been like, from being first mover here, and then now we're seeing, it seems like more pressure from these big companies who, whether they want to offer a better experience online or have these parts of your business?
Well, I think it's better for customers if everyone ups their game. So we're all benefiting of that. I don't see anyone else entering the rental space in any way, which is great because it's really complicated to do so. But I welcome anyone who wants to try to get
question. I think your question is getting at, to me, what, as I started Spring and as we went into this business, it's been fascinating is that in the tech world, everybody who sells something is grouped as competitive. So anybody in e-commerce is therefore overlapping because we're selling stuff. And there's this, if you go out on the street, right, if you just walk up 8th Avenue or across 34th Street, there's hundreds of stores. Right. They're not all directly competitive with each other. And there's nuance in each of the offerings. Her service and our service have no overlap in terms of competition. And so I think in the tech world, there's just been a broad assumption that it's everybody against Amazon, and if you're selling anything, you're competitive with anybody else who's selling anything.
I totally agree. I mean, we have 5 million members right now, and on average, they're 29 years old, which is 25 years younger than the average age of the traditional designer customer. So we are expanding.
People view you as competitive with these things that have no relevance to you, right?
Completely, but I think that there's been a change where the incumbents 5 years ago might have thought I was competitive. Now they actually think that I'm adding to the market and increasing the total addressable market. And to just build on your point, not only are many of these e-commerce businesses not competitive, but one thing that really benefits Rent the Runway is the existence of Spotify, Netflix, Birchbox, which is all about discovery commerce, ClassPass, anything where you would change the model in which you consume things, that helps my business grow because it creates a mentality around access and rental and basically new ways of getting what you want.
Anybody else who's selling something on mobile and teaching consumers that buying something nice and on your phone that will show up the next day is benefiting our business, it's not hurting our business. And so I think that there's a broad education that's happening in the market around new ways of buying things and new ways of getting those things delivered to you and what those experiences can be that's benefiting all of our businesses.
Do you think investors, have you seen a shift in how investors have talked to you about your respective businesses? Is some of that concept of if you are in e-commerce, you're under this one umbrella and you must be competing with Amazon, has that shifted? I'd imagine that some of that comes from the investment community. Has that shifted? Has it become more nuanced at all in the past few years?
Of course. I mean, when you have real numbers to back up what your investment thesis is, right now when we raised our last round, they were investing on the success of what we had done, not the dream anymore. And so rental is a much higher gross margin business than if I were just to sell that product because it's utilizing your inventory more effectively. I also think that having more female founders and having many of those female founders be extremely successful has also had a real benefit in our fundraising over time, and hopefully we're a part of that. You know, I want to see as many female founders actually succeed in creating multi-billion-dollar businesses because it lifts all boats. I thought it was amazing last week when the news came out about Warby Parker and their recent round. It helps everyone in New York to see other businesses that are successful here. You know, we have to start thinking of ourselves as a community a lot more.
Julie, what's been your experience in pitching a cosmetics company?
Well, I think cosmetics will be to this year as food was to last year from a venture perspective. The market is so large and so few people are playing in it that there's just so much opportunity. I quote the statistic endlessly, but 70% of the industry is consolidated into 10 conglomerates. So, I mean, it really is that sort of feeling where that when technology comes into any space that hasn't changed in 50 years, that's opportunity, that's real money. So from our perspective, our fundraise was, you know, kind of a breeze because the white space is still very much there. I anticipate that it'll get incredibly competitive. But makeup, just makeup, is 4 times the size of shaving, and shaving is really killing it as a category online. So I think it's just getting to the point where we realize that there are sort of 2 trends. You either commodify or you brand. And branding is really interesting right now because branding has better margins. And we're seeing the success of that branding because that's what consumers really resonate with. And no one's going to compete racing to the bottom, but we're all going to do very well when we establish something that means something, solves a problem, makes women's lives easier, and like that's where money's going.
I also just want to say that there has been the word fashion in the tech world is often viewed historically as being a dirty word. The reason why I started a disruptive fashion business is that it's the 2nd largest industry on planet Earth. It's a $1.7 trillion global industry that we are disrupting. The only thing that's larger is the transportation and automotive industry. And it's one of the few things that people have to do every single day. You have to put on clothes. So, at least I hope so. So let's also understand where the stereotypes are coming from, that 5 years ago when I went out to raise funding around a fashion company, people were like, oh, this is some kind of niche thing, et cetera, for women. I'm like, no, it's actually one of the biggest industries on earth.
Yeah, our fundraising is, and I think what differentiates Spring is our business model. We don't touch inventory. We're not doing warehouses. We're not figuring out how to get the products. We're working with brand partners. And so we have 850 brands, anyone from Marc Jacobs to Everlane to Estee Lauder selling directly to consumers on Spring. what we're able to do is build a business model that's scalable. And if you look outside of America, this business model is being built first in countries that haven't had a big e-commerce giant emerge. And so if you look in China, if you look in India, the marketplace model is what succeeded there. It's what scaled there. What happened in America is desktops and Amazon came first. And so if you start with mobile, and if you start with brands having the ability to do the logistics themselves, the marketplace model, which is what we're focused on, is totally differentiated, and to consumers, it should deliver a better experience in the end.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you all for coming on stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.